EB.
What up, fellas?
What up, fellas? How y'all doing?
What's going on?
How y'all making out tonight?
Good.
Good.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and start this show off. Now, here's the thing. We all know that Mom Dukes is our heart.
Right.
Yes.
Will always be our heart.
Right.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I want to pose this question to the fellas tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, what other female can you say that was very influential in your life? Come on, give me somebody.
I'll take the lead on this. Graham. You remember Graham, right? Right.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Graham was the sweetest.
Yeah, man. Graham, man. She was very influential. She taught me a lot of things. At one time, we lived with her. About for a year or so, and so it's just every morning. You would get your breakfast. Your pancakes and your sausage, and all that good stuff. So, very influential, very spiritual. She was a very spiritual woman. She taught me, that religion is not so much, she wasn't religious, put it like that. She was more spiritual,
Right.
And even though we went to a Methodist church, she was able to fraternize and socialize with, Pentecostals or Baptists or Catholics, because she was just a spiritual woman. Sometimes people get into the religion thing and, all the protocols of the churches and, all the, I guess the mainstays of the church and how you have to be this way and be that way, but she's spiritual, and very intelligent woman, even though she didn't finish high school, but very, very intelligent, very astute, woman. So she instilled those things in me, and other than my mom, she's probably the most, if not the most influential woman in my life.
I'm gonna go next. I would say I think it might be about two or three. It may be about two or three. One was my sixth grade teacher, Ms. J.N. Carter.
Oh yeah, Miss Carter.
Miss J.N. Carter, man. I remember she thought it was important enough, 1985. She thought it was important enough for us to learn about MOVE when the bombing happened in Philly in 1985. She bought a TV in, and that was the first time. Most times we watching TV shows or movies when the teacher bring it in. You getting happy, you excited, like we great watch a movie. But she brought the TV in 1985, and she stayed on us. The second person, I'll always give Miss Jamal.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All resembling of my own mother. Her credit for pushing. And I'm not sure if y'all had her too at Morgan Village.
I did.
Yeah. And the influence. Even to this day, I see Miss Jamal, and she's always encouraging and always pushing and always motivating. My last person is a Dr. Price, who I was in grad school at Lincoln, and Dr. Price was, she was, I guess, like another mom figure. She challenged the heck out of me, pushed me. When I thought something was right, Keith, you need to bring this back. So she's another person that I got three of them, and all educators. So she's another person that I definitely want to, I'll always remember. What you got, Wardy?
Well, since I didn't go to Morgan Village, I went to Hatch. And I'm kind of with you, Keith. It was multiple. I actually had two female teachers in Hatch that actually pushed me and made me realize my potential.
Right.
But before, I just wanted to go through school and, just do what I do. But you know, when I first got there, I did not like my AT teacher, Miss Pickett. I did not like her.
Yeah.
Tried my best to get out of her class, but you know, she came, you know, between another teacher that's like, look, you better go to her class. And she pushed me and to realize my potential that I had.
Right.
And the other was Miss McIntosh. She was my math teacher. She was my honors math teacher in Hatch. And she pushed me.
Okay.
So basically those two, man, made me realize what I really had upstairs.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and bring it home. Keith, you just mentioned Miss Jamal. That's my girl right there, 8th grade math. Not only did she teach, absolutely. Not only did she teach math, but she taught life skills. She taught us about growing up, being strong Black men.
Right.
So I got to give some props to Miss Jamal. Then I got to move on to Mrs. Linnell Wright.
Ooh.
Mrs. Linnell Wright, she taught this one course called Advanced Composition. So Mrs. Wright helped me to polish my writing skills in preparation for college. So I got to give it up to Miss Wright.
That's what's up.
Yep. Professor Kevy Kev just joined in right on time.
Yes,
can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can hear you, bro.
Okay.
Yeah, we talking about Katie. We talking about influential women who made it such an impact on your life. That we all can say our mothers outside of your mother. So you know, we wonder if you got somebody for us that you want to talk about.
Okay, my bad. So one influential I was sharing with y'all yesterday. I gotta stop saying so much. Me and Eric, we went to Richard Stockton College of New Jersey, now Stockton University.
Right.
And I had the pleasure, both me and Eric, EB, had the pleasure of being in Dr. Patricia Reed Merritt's class.
Okay.
And she is a well-known author. I think she might have been on Oprah one time.
I think she was
as well. She is an African dance instructor. She is an African American studies teacher and professor. And she was also one of my social work professors at Stockton College too. I remember one time we were all talking about how Black professors are harder on the Black students than everything else, our white counterparts. And she was one that was hard on me. I thought I had some of the greatest African studies papers or some of the greatest social work essays that was written in my classes. And she would chew me up and spit me out and tell me to go back to the drawing board. Later on, when I needed her for a recommendation into a master's program, when I went back to Stockton and I found her, she remembered my name. She remembered that it was a few of us brothers in her African dance class. And she told me the reason why she pushed me so hard was because Black males need that push in order to strive for excellence in the classroom setting, because we got to work twice as hard as our white counterparts in order to achieve any amount of success. And I'm grateful to this day for her, because she pushed me to be a social worker. She pushed me to get my master's. And, you know, I credit that strong Black woman, beautiful Black woman on the inside and the outside, smart as a tack, and just intelligent and supportive in every way. So, I believe she's still down there at Stockton, EB, still teaching.
Yep, she is, Kev.
Yeah.
Oh, man, fellas, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. I want to say welcome to everyone. Welcome to Just Our Thoughts with the Fellas, where we talk about national, local news. We talking about trending topics and socially, culturally relevant news as well. I'm your host, Keith Hall, and today we got the fellas with us. We definitely got the fellas with us. We got EB. Say what's up, E.
What up, everybody? What up?
We got Ward Heen.
Yeah. Yes,
Ward
sir.
Heen.
Yes, sir. Taking it back to high school.
Take it back to high school. I got my brother, attorney at law, Dre Wood. What's going on, Dre?
What's up? What's up?
And the professor, I think your mic is off, brother. I don't know what he's doing. Yeah, your mic is off, brother. But what's up, man? Welcome anyway. Just join us whenever you get back on. If you're just joining us, we just took some time to reminisce and talk about some women that impacted us throughout our life. Outside of our mothers, we always talk about our mothers, and we certainly want to give the respect and gratitude for the drive that our mothers have, and the push and the strength that they show. But we also wanted to talk about Black women in leadership. Women, specifically Black women, are often forgot about in the grand scheme of things. Historically, their voices weren't heard, yet Black women are so crucial and paramount. They're the backbones of our family. They're the reason in chaos, the strength and motivation to remind us not to quit. Before the fellas and I were born, Black women couldn't vote. They were the last ones to be able to vote. So the country thought that it wasn't important for Black women's voices to be heard. Yet Black women have been proven to be exceptional leaders over time and today. And today we have one of those exceptional leaders, Reverend Nikki Brown, who decided, thankfully, to be a special guest on our show. Nikki Brown has one mission: to empower women to break through their limitations, discover their greatness, and become more. Known for her high impact and dynamic teaching style, she is a life leader who embodies the teaching, the philosophy that trapped within every woman is the ability to create her own doorway to greatness and success. So today we have the great Reverend Nikki Brown. Nikki, we appreciate you for coming on and joining us. Just our thoughts with the fellas as we talk about Black women in leadership. First, we wanted to give you the platform, to hear your voice, to share with us, your thoughts, your experience when it comes to Black women in corporate America as well as leadership. So if you don't mind, can you tell us some of your experience, and coming to who you are as a person, and being the leader that you are?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the inner sanctuary. Thank you.
You're in the lion's den. You're in the lion's den, Reverend Brown.
Thank you for bringing me into the man cave. I don't know if I'm the first woman to enter.
You are, Nikki. You are.
Okay, well, then I feel extremely I feel right at home. Keith, you've known me. I grew up with all boys. I have no sisters. I grew up with all brothers, and so, and even my mom was more. She was a strong female, so it was a pretty male-dominated household. So I want to thank you, fellas, for inviting me out to come and just share my thoughts. And yeah, this is such an important topic, talking about Black women in leadership. And I first just want to lay the premise that, I run a women's organization and I celebrate all women, right? But I also understand that there is unique challenges to Black women, women of color. Let me say that, women of color, because if you are non-white, there are different challenges than if you are white. And so I do recognize that. And in my years of being a therapist and a social worker and working as a minister, I have talked with every shade of woman, and I've had the privilege to be able to connect with these women in different ways. So yes, my background is that I started off working with young girls and never could have considered or thought that I was going to have a women's platform. I struggled a lot with women, so I'm very shocked. Not really, because God has a sense of humor. I'm very surprised that I have a women's platform and a women's program and a women's business, because I really struggled with women. I struggled in relationships. I struggled with vulnerability. I struggled with really being able to be authentic around women. I've had a lot of deep hurts from women. But so I started off with young girls, and I started with young girls because I really struggled with a sense of self-esteem growing up. And I'm sure we can talk about this, a lot, but I struggled with self-esteem a lot. And I really just had a passion to want to give back. And as I went back and got my master's degree and started working with couples and, families, as I was a social worker for many years, it felt like my clientele started to change without me advertising. I just, more and more women were walking through the door, executives, mothers, single mothers, women who worked in the kitchen, women who didn't work, stay-at-home moms, the woman who's been abused, the woman who's been oppressed, the woman who's making close to 7 figures. And the tone and the tenor sounded the same. The platform, the playing field felt very level. And many of those women were African-American. But it just was amazing. And I think that's how God pushed me into a women's business or a women's platform. He started bringing them to me, and being that it was my business and I ran a counseling department, I wasn't going to turn them away. But as the years progressed, my heartbeat started to change from girls to women, because the conversation was the same. As if I was talking to somebody who was 15 years old, I was having the same conversation with someone who was 55.
Really.
And honestly, to be honest and transparent, because that's one of the things I have really promised myself I would do, it was almost as if I was having a conversation with myself.
Really? Wow.
And those conversations were the same: feeling unheard, feeling walked on, feeling undervalued, unappreciated, feeling oppressed, feeling left out, feeling invisible, feeling insignificant, wanting love desperately. And I have to say, I believe that is a universal message that you're going to hear from women all across the board. But it does strike our African-American women differently.
Right. So Reverend Nikki, with Madam Vice President Kamala Harris just being elected just last week, joining the ranks and second in command in the world, pretty much. What do you think that means for you as well as women of color?
Well, I want to tell you that I had such a emotional response to it. I think there were a lot of women who did as well. I had such an emotional response because I just remember growing up and feeling as if there were no role models for us. There were a few, right? But to see someone in that position who made her way and worked hard to get to where she was, it's just powerful. We have struggled to see people who look like us and who, had that down home kind of sister, and you got that sense that she was a part of our community. It was very emotional. I definitely cried. I definitely was proud. I felt proud. Similar to how I felt with Barack and Michelle Obama. Right. Yeah, like I'm there. I'm her. Like I could be her. I could have gotten. And depending on when you were raised, how what era you were raised in, this is something we just didn't think we would and we would ever see. And yes, through the years, we're seeing a lot more women on TV of color, Oprah Winfrey, who were playing a more positive role. But if you were, you grew up in the 70s, the 80s, you just really didn't see that a whole lot.
Not at all. You didn't see any.
to see a woman of that stature at that high of a level, knowing that she has the potential to be the president of the United States, is just very inspiring. It makes us feel as if, oh, how do I step my next A game up? What's the next version?
Right.
How do I get there? What can I begin to do? If there's nothing that we cannot do. So,
no, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. And again, thank you, Reverend Nikki, for being on with us. You have inaugurated the fellas with your presence. First Black woman. This is a historic moment.
What you got, KD?
Staying right there on Kamala Harris. As much as we've seen Black America celebrate the selection of Kamala Harris to Vice President-elect, we've also seen a lot of hostility to that selection as well.
Yeah.
The Trump administration, our president himself has called her a monster, called her nasty, has made fun of the pronunciation of her name, Kamala, right? Am I pronouncing it Kamala? Kamala. Yeah. So, which means lotus, but we've seen how, the president has made fun of even the pronunciation of her name and has said some very derogatory, some very, you better answer that, some very derogatory things about her. Do you think that's because, just want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that's because white men feel threatened about a Black woman now having the ability to make decisions for our country? What are your thoughts about that?
I want to say two things, and I like to keep it real. The hostility didn't just come from white women and white men. It came from Black women, too. I heard Black women say, I'm not feeling her. And one of the things that we struggle with as Black women is this misperception of who we are, right? And the immediate visceral feeling or effect that people have when we walk into the room, especially when we have a title, especially when we have position, especially when we have leadership. So let's talk about it from possibly a white person's perspective. I'm not white. I'm not going to say what they're thinking.
Right.
I think the biggest misconception that people have of women, Black women in leadership, is that we don't know what we're doing, that we're not skilled, we're not qualified to be where we are. How did we get there? How did you get there?
Right.
Get here? And of course, we're angry. We're nasty. We're angry. We've heard our president say that about Black and white women. The first person we heard him say that about was Hillary Clinton, nasty woman.
Right.
We got a T-shirt to say that.
Yeah.
But then for Black women, it's even worse because it's like it's about, this is who you all are. You're nasty. You're horrendous. How do you even say your name? It's so out of the context. Your name is just so what? And it's all designed to make you go back into your corner. Shut your mouth.
Right.
To stay in your place. Stay in your place, girl. And I'm going to tell you, there's something that as Black women, we experience growing up as little girls, right? Especially when we get a moment, and I say a moment, because oftentimes you can take us back to when did we lose our sense of self and self-confidence? We either declared what we wanted to be, who we were, and we got this response such as, well, who do you think you are?
Sure.
Right.
Or, you're not good enough for that.
Right.
I know mine, I always struggled with this feeling of, who you think you are? Who do you think you are? And your response is, I don't know.
Right. You start questioning yourself.
we get that visceral, we get that response, and I hate to say this, but it is true, and maybe this is why God has me here. We get that response from white people, and we definitely get it from our sisters.
Right.
We get it. I remember bringing some of my real good girlfriends. They dressed sharp. They were beautiful. They walked into the room like, I'm here, you're welcome. Okay?
Right.
And we literally, I would watch my teams at times or women I knew do this.
Yeah.
And it's designed to make you go in your corner, right? And not say anything. And we get that. What I've experienced from white women sometimes when we walk in the room, not necessarily but it's I'm going to ignore you.
Right.
You're
Got you.
That patronizing smile, like,
right.
You're you're precious. Okay.
Right.
All of those things are designed. All of those things are designed to shut us down. I've heard women say, I'm not feeling her. I'm not feeling comedy. Why? I just, I think I'm feeling her.
No reason.
No full reason. Just
no valid full reason.
Right. Or she just seems like, nothing policy oriented, nothing that we can say, I didn't like her policies when she was in California and she was, the attorney there, the general attorney there. I didn't like her as a prosecutor because this is what she did. You just feel that, who did she think she is? And that mentality, y'all don't have to say that, but I can say that.
Right. We can't say that.
As well as other people, you ain't allowed to say that, Professor. that make us shrink in the corner, and we get it from all sides.
Right. So Reverend Nikki, I got a follow-up question for you real quick. You talked earlier, you brought up about how even some Black women had some reservations about Vice President Harris being selected. Earlier, you talked about how you were challenged in your relationships with women as well from your personal experiences. But, we see that in the workplace a lot as an outside observer that, women, Black women, women in general, just have difficulties at times with their relationships with one another in the workplace. Sometimes it seems to be a competitive nature, a rival. Very difficult at times for them, for women to, to really work collectively together in the workplace setting. Can you speak a little bit about some of the difficulties that women have as far as having a good and healthy workplace relationship?
How much time y'all got?
Wow.
You don't have time.
We ain't got the time.
well, okay, just give me the condensed version if you can.
So, when I started thinking about this podcast and I started kind of thinking through, some of our thoughts, I thought back to who was the first person when I worked, who made me at times feel undervalued, unappreciated, and invisible. And I hate to say this, but it is the truth. The first person that ever made me feel that way was a supervisor I had, and she was Black. And she was, I was 21, 22, and and you coming out of college, you just, what?
Yeah, you know everything.
I'm the stuff, you know, you the stuff. And she was in a position that I'm certain she had, looking back now, I'm certain she had to fight for that position. I'm certain she had to work her butt off because she was literally a director of a huge program. And she treated, my direct report was Caucasian, and she treated her way better than she treated me. In fact, we had such a contentious relationship that she ended up taking away all of my hours. And I remember being so distraught. I went home and I cried. I talked to my mom, and my mom said she's intimidated. And I said, about what? And this woman was probably in her late 30s, 40s. I looked up to her. I thought she was amazing. And I didn't understand it. And she was angry all the time. She was nasty. She was smart mouth. I mean, it was just, you were hopping on 2 toes just to try to please her. And looking back now with wise eyes, I realized that she was probably put in that role, and she had to try to prove herself. And she probably had to walk through there as if, you know, I got to make sure, you know, this environment is correct. I don't have the time to nurture anybody, to you know, to mentor anybody. I'm trying to make sure mine is straight. And I get that. Like I didn't get it at that time. I was so angry and upset. So you talk about women who, you know, who I struggled with. That was one major relationship. And, you know, I didn't understand it at the time. Looking back now, though, I understand the position she was put in because she was the only African-American in a high leadership position in this company. And when you're at that level and at that, you know, that place, that feeling of risk and that feeling of pressure to prove, right? Because you're not just proving to them, you're proving for all the women who behind you who didn't do that. So you've got to make this work. You've got to be successful. And if that means stepping on the next person, don't get in the way. You know, and that's that mentality, unfortunately, that leads a lot of women in the workplace to fight with each other and struggle. And it's this competition to be valid, to be validated, to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged, to be respected. And we can go on and talk about relationships, you know, with other men. We look at one another as women as competitors. Oh, she's cute. Oh, she thinks she's cute. I know you have a daughter. To this day, young girls still walk in the room and get mad. And when they, you know, you walk in and you think you're cute. Right. You're ugly. She thinks she's cute, you know, and women, grown women, we still struggle with that sense of competitiveness because, you know, being raised, whether you were raised by a mother or you were raised with 2 parents in the household, there was this feeling that I had to fight to be seen, to be heard, to be validated. And even greater, you'll find this fight even greater when it comes time to male-female relationships. And
so Reverend Nikki, I need answers. I need solutions. How in the world do you change that dynamic, or do you break that culture? Because it can be so toxic between women in the workplace and the relationship. How do you break that? How do you change that?
Well, it's got to change from the top down. And one of the things that I worked to do, and I can't say I perfected it, but when me and Keith, you know, worked together, I was in charge of a women's department. And by that point, I realized, okay, I'm supposed to be working with women. And I was far removed from my first experience at 21, 22. And I had been working as a counselor for many, many years. And I just remember saying, I need this atmosphere to be different. And the only way that happens is I had to carry a different culture. And that took time because it meant I had to let my walls down. I had to stop being so guarded, stop being so looking at you out the corner eye. So distrustful that you're going to damage my heart or destroy me because the other 2 women did, whether they were Black or white. And so that took a lot of time. I am not going to sit here and say that I walked into that position and I said, oh, I'm going to change this culture. I didn't. It took me years. And I think what did it was I didn't like the feeling that I had when I walked into the room and it felt like it was just cold and dead and, you know, people were not being personable and, you know, our client base who were our kids and their parents were being turned away and turned off because of their attitude. And their attitude was a direct reflection of my attitude.
Really?
And me being close and me not wanting to smile and hug or say, oh my God, you look so beautiful. Look at you. Or to be encouraging or nurturing because it was a symbol of weakness, which is what our parents taught us, our mothers or our aunties have taught us. And so to break that culture, we've got to break the culture in us. We have to be honest and say, you know, do I still struggle with intimidation? Do I get intimidated by other women?
Right.
Am I still struggling with a sense of jealousy? And for me at that time, the answer was, yeah. When another woman walks in and she's tight or, you know, her hair is tight.
Right.
My response was, she ain't all that. I mean, come on. You know?
All right, I want to ask
a question for you, Rev.
I had to break that. I had to learn ways to love who I was. And I think that just goes all the way back to our childhood. We're not always affirmed by our parents or by our teachers to the point where I could celebrate another woman and not feel as if it takes something away from me. Not feel like I'm being robbed or anything like that. And so when I'm nurtured well, when someone tells me I'm wonderful, when someone reminds me of my value. Now listen here, men, you guys play a part in this.
Sure.
As fathers, as boyfriends, as husbands, especially boyfriends. You know, if you have done a part to devalue another African-American woman, I want to tell you all that does. And whether that's you broke her heart, you cheated on her, you didn't treat her like she was the queen that she is for whatever reason, all that does is prove to me what I always was taught about myself, that I'm not good enough. That I'm not good enough. And so the way we change that, it starts with how we are nurtured as women, how we are nurtured as women, with how we are, you know, dealt with as women. And we've got to own that. As men, you have to own that as well. And be So I say that, and I can talk about it all day because I have 3 brothers and I watched all of them struggle with relationships. And, you know, there were days I would yell and say, you can't do that to her. You know, I'm telling you, and what happens is our relationships with men. I know this wasn't, I hope I'm not topic, but
go ahead.
With men teach us everything. You think about it. Eve has never been alone. Eve was only created for Adam.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So, yes, our validation comes from God, but the first words Eve heard was from Adam.
Sure.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So that imprint within us to want to hear from a man, to know that we are of value. We were created. That's a DNA imprint within us. And yes, God created us. And yes, God validated us. He made us. But it was Adam who confirmed us.
Right.
So we still
Now, Reverend Nikki, real quick. I'm sorry, I ain't gonna take up all.
No, we got some other questions right now.
Okay. I got Reverend Nikki. Reverend Nikki.
Go ahead.
Reverend Nikki. Part 2.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hey, Reverend Nikki, listen. You probably have a nice laundry list of answers for my question, but here's one thing. If you could share with the audience, could you point out one thing that has helped you as a Black female to find your voice, and what can you say to those females who are a little laid back to help them find their inner authentic voice?
Yep. It really starts with nurturing. I have to say my husband is a huge, he was one of the first, maybe outside of my father and my brother, my older brother. I joke and say he's my other husband. My older brother and I are very, very close. Keith knows that. And he was my first hero. You know, he was that one that says, you can do it, you can do it. But then I struggled, you know, I had other experiences that was like, my brother, he's my family. You can tell me that, right? So then my husband came along, and to really have another male speak into my life was a huge deal for me and helped to build some platforms for me. But then I opened myself up to allow women to speak to my heart and to give me space to be myself. And so what allowed me to have that voice is that those women challenging me to be authentic and real. I remember struggling at a point where I used to emulate other people. I used to emulate their mannerisms, how they talk, because I didn't know who I was. But when I had other women come along, other mentors, you know, and that's why I really advocate for that. You've got to get women in your life who are a mentor to you, one or two, who's going to applaud you. They don't want anything from you. They don't want a ride. They don't want money. They're not calling you with issues. They just want to help you get to the next version of who you are. Those women came into my life, and there's about 3 of them who came into my life, and they nurtured the heck out of me. And meaning they challenged me. They did not co-sign to my BS.
Right. No, that's true.
I was wrong. They challenged me. And when I was on fire with something, they celebrated and they clapped for me. And those things forced me to decide, do I want to be that kind of woman too? And I think that's what turned the tide for me to develop a voice. That being in so I guess what I want to say is it matters what your atmosphere is. Your environment is everything. Who's in your environment? Who celebrates you or who tolerates you? Who allows you to speak your mind? Who allows you to be yourself? Who allows you to use your voice and without judgment, no judgment zone? Who challenges you to be better?
Sure.
Those things develop your voice. And then I had a great pastor who was one of the first people who said, oh my God, you're amazing at this and this. And even though those giftings weren't necessarily me speaking on some level, it was still my voice. It's how I communicated who I was. And speaking happened to be one of those, but how I spoke and what I spoke and the types of messages. So all those things came about. The thing I would tell people who are listening is you have to be willing to put yourself in a position to be spoken into and to be nurtured. And the only way to do that is you've got to be vulnerable. And that word does not work well with
Black people. About that.
That word does not work very well for women, being vulnerable, because it makes us feel like we're weak. But to have an authentic voice, you have to be vulnerable. You have to acknowledge your weaknesses. You have to acknowledge what your strengths are, where you've messed up, what you're intimidated again by, where you feel insecure, where you're broken. All of those things is your voice. And when you can acknowledge that within yourself, then any room that you walk in, you don't feel afraid of somebody taking something from you or you losing something because you know, you're not good enough. You know who you are. You've developed that voice. You know where you're not that great. You've developed that voice. And so that's what's helped. And I'm going to be honest with you, counseling helped. When I went through counseling school, I didn't know that part of the curriculum was you actually had to be counseled.
Had to be counseled.
Go through counseling for those 2-3 years. And God knew that I was crazy. So he sent me to a degree. I was sitting in class like, why are they trying to counsel me?
Right.
Crazy. That's why.
Good stuff right there. Good stuff.
You know, I remember my professors wrestling with me and saying, you will never take somebody to a place you haven't been. If you want to take people to a road of healing, you will not get there if you don't take the risk to go there first.
That's good stuff.
All right. I just want to backtrack a little bit. Listening to you talk about your struggles in the workplace, dealing with other women. In a way, I kind of feel like we get the same struggles. And I work in construction, so I work around mainly men. But I jokingly always say I work with a lot of women because, you know, I always get the feeling as though it's like they feel as though you're trying to take their place.
Yeah.
it's never like they want to help you move forward.
Yeah.
You know, and master your craft.
Right.
But they feel as though that you're just there to move them out of the way and kick them to the curb.
Right.
But it's not like that. We all need to grow. So
Right.
do you ever feel that way, that it was more or less them you trying to take their place than them just actually trying to mentor you to move up the ladder?
Are you asking, have I ever felt like someone who was coming alongside of me was trying to take my place?
No, like the supervisor you had in the beginning, where you said you felt as though she was put in a position to, that she was the only black woman around. But now she's only being the black woman around. Here comes another one. Oh, she might be in my, she's trying to take my spot.
Yeah, I have felt that way many times. And that's what I said about, I had to be honest with myself. Do I get intimidated? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And my response to intimidation was to put up a wall and to put up a attitude,
mm-hmm.
and become very impersonable, and to try to outdo that person.
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced that. I have gone through that. I have wrestled with that for many years. And I just love being transparent, because I feel like when I talk to women and they're like, I've always been confident. Now that might be true.
Right.
But that's not my story. I wasn't always confident.
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced that, and I have watched other women experience it, which is why I can point it out, because I get it and I understand it. There is a real fear. There is a real fear that the next person who comes along, who's prettier, who's cuter,
right,
who's light-skinned, who's
Becky. Becky with the good hair. Becky with the good hair.
Who has more degrees, who's a doctor versus a master level, or who has more experience, or who, just feels like they've got a little more favor. There's a fear that I am going to be pushed out of the door.
Right.
And it's refreshing to hear that men go through that as well as women. I think it's a universal feeling.
It is.
But at the end of the day, this is where faith comes. So when I used to talk to people, and even when I had to struggle with myself, the question is, did God bring me here?
Right.
See, did God open this door? See, if God opened the door, then no man can shut that door. So really, we're now talking about, it's not my struggle with you, it's my struggle with God. It's my level of faith. Where is my sense of faith? Do I trust that when God opens the door for me, it is because from eternity, he knew I was going to get to that spot, prepare me for that moment. And no devil, no demon in hell is going to take me out of it unless I take myself out of it.
Right.
And if I don't believe that, then I'm going to be fighting with my coworkers. I'm going to be fighting with my boss. I'm going to be feeling like I have to prove myself and validate myself and all of those type of things. This is where we start getting into the angry black woman.
Right.
Walking around, she got to try to prove it, because I don't believe that I belong here. I'm actually releasing a book in 2021. It's called Audacity.
Audacity.
Audacity. One of the chapters is called I'm Here, You're Welcome. And to literally feel like I belong in the room. Not because you told me I belong.
Right.
Not because she told me, not because I worked on my resume for 5 days and I tightened it up. And although that's a part of it, but because God told me I belong in the room. And if I can hold on to that sense of faith that I belong here, then I don't have to fight with anybody.
Right.
I can work to get my voice heard. I can definitely, negotiate. And if I have to fight every now and then for what's right. But to fight in this level of, I'm fighting to get to the watering well, just to get water.
Right.
You gotta fight for that.
Yeah.
I don't have to fight for that. He put me here.
Right.
He put me here. So that's fundamentally, that's where the struggle resides. Up here, the struggles with people. Down here, the struggles with God. Am I good enough? Do I belong here? You know, and am I worthy? Do I have value? Those things nobody can answer. You can get 5 promotions and still feel the same way you did at level 1.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
So, Pastor, Reverend Nikki, I have 2 daughters, and you know, I told them to, you know, sometimes they watch and sometimes they don't, but I specifically told them to watch tonight. And I think when we were backstage, you were saying that you have a daughter as well, correct? So, what would you tell the young women, especially, you know, women of color, young Black women, Latina women, what have you, women of color that are matriculating through school today and have these ambitions in terms of being in male-dominated industries, such as whether it be, and you know, I'm an attorney, whether it be, you know, the legal field, whether it be a doctor, whether it be in film. What would you tell them in terms of, you know, your experiences and how you got to where you are right now?
So I think it starts with perception. It really does. I where I got to where I am right now, and I did not work in a male-dominated field, although being a minister during a time where women were not biblically seen to be ministers, was definitely the same type of challenge. I have gone to places where, to speak, where I was totally looked down upon by the male ministers because they didn't biblically think I belonged.
Right.
I didn't belong there. And there are still men today who don't believe women should, whether it be a pastor or preach or teach or any of those type of things. And so, yes, I'm in a male-dominated, I guess, ministry or field. But it really, again, goes back to perception. You know, who do I believe God has called me to be? Right? Because that's the base struggle. Whenever I've struggled with insecurity or struggled to feel like I fit in, it always went back to, it touched on something that I believed about myself to begin with. Nobody can touch a nerve that doesn't exist. Right? And so for your daughters who are going into male-dominated fields, number one, they have to believe I'm called to this. And I'm not called by man, I'm called by God. How do I know I'm called for it? I have a passion for it. I've worked for it. I believe this is the field I'm supposed to be going in. I've always wanted it. And so I have to believe that I'm just as good, I'm just as talented as the next person, and not get into this self-fulfilling or cyclical cycle, if I can say that, of trying to prove myself. This is what happens. When you go in and you feel, and they immediately say, oh, you're going into a male-dominated field. It's tough. Immediately your mind goes to, oh, I gotta step up, right? Now, on some small level, that's true. You gotta come in a little tighter, right? Because I'm Black, I'm a woman, so I need to be tight. But I need to be tight no matter what. Right? But if I go in with this thing right here at the top of my head of, oh God, it's male dominant. Oh Lord, you know, immediately I get into this cycle of I have to prove myself. The moment you start trying to prove yourself, you create this self-fulfilling prophecy or self-fulfilling cycle of failure. Because when you start trying to prove yourself, you have to put more energy and effort into not failing than succeeding. I'm going to say that again. You have to put more energy. You start focusing on not failing versus what are all the steps that I need to do to succeed? And see, there's a difference between the two, because not failing means I'm just measuring up. I'm just doing, you know, what I need to do. Succeeding is I'm taking all the different steps that I need, and I'm learning how to maintain my equilibrium, my balance. I'm learning how to maintain, as well as learning how to take the steps to take it to the next level. And so the moment you start trying to prove yourself, what are you trying to prove? That I'm adequate. You will always create what you fear. So if you're afraid that people are going to see you as inadequate, you start messing up on your job because the energy is so the energy in the atmosphere is so focused on trying to prove that you're adequate,
right?
That you literally start messing up in other areas and other ways because you're not being true to who you are.
Right.
The other thing is you're trying to prove something about yourself that's already true. You don't have to prove it. But
Right.
I think my thought is you don't think that I'm adequate. So I've got to prove to you that I'm adequate. So I start doing extra stuff that's not in my purview that I probably shouldn't be doing, or I pull myself way back because I'm afraid to put myself out there. Because if I put myself out there, you might see that I'm not adequate. And at the end of the day, it starts back with the fact that I don't think I'm adequate.
Right.
It's the cycle. I'm sure you all have experienced it. Yeah. I've experienced it. I would tell myself right before I got up to speak, don't mess up your words. Don't mess up your words. Don't mess up your words. Guess what I did? I messed up all my words.
We all do that. We all do that. Yeah.
Because I'm so worried about people. You know, my perception is success to them is if I don't mess up my words. Where did I get that from? I came up with that on my own.
In your mind.
Told me that.
Right.
I developed that theory in my head. Anytime someone says, "Oh, it's going to be a large crowd," we're talking several thousand, and they're waiting on you. They're waiting. They're better come with it, you know.
Right.
And I don't come with it because I'm so worried about trying to prove to you that I am who you think I am versus being who I know I am.
Right. Sure.
And it's such a powerful concept to walk through the door and just be me.
Right.
Just be me. That I belong here. God made space in the universe at this moment, at this time, for who I am to show up. Not the imitation version, not the version that needs to prove itself. And that's the greatest hurdle. So if your daughters are listening, the greatest thing you can do is go in and be the best you. I mean, kill it with you. Absolutely. And you got to know that within you is a rock star, that you got something that nobody else has, that there is something about you that you do every day near perfection that nobody else can do, that nobody else can accomplish. And if you don't believe that, you will go in looking for someone to validate that part of you.
Right.
What's my secret weapon? What do I do that makes me valuable?
Sure.
Because if you don't, you will lose your value. You will go into a job and be undervalued and be underpaid because you don't know what you're bringing to the table. You don't know
what your worth is.
To offer and what your worth is. So who cares if it's male dominated or female dominated? Female dominated has its unique challenges.
I'm sure.
One's better than the other. I know it's
right.
dominated world.
Take your pick. It's a toss-up.
Female dominated world.
Right.
You know, we're so social. We will, you know, I call it, my last job, I was in Kentucky. There was one building I would go in and my job was to help the CEO and the managers to create culture change. And I tell you, it was because it was a healthcare field. They were all women. They were all nurses. And I tell you, that was the mean girl club.
Really?
I felt so bad for the new babies who I trained on the wing. I mean, they were alienated. It was like being back in high school all over again. So no matter what atmosphere you go into, whether it's male dominated or female dominated, you have to know, who am I? What do I have to do? And I don't have to prove myself. I just have to be.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Very powerful.
Just have to.
Ooh. Can I step in here, Keith? Can I step in here?
Hey, we running short with time. You got this. You could take this one.
15 more minutes. I got 15 minutes.
Okay.
All right. Reverend Nikki, it feels like I'm taking a walk down Jewelers Road because you really dropping some gems. And we appreciate it. You talked about knowing that you belong when you come into that environment. knowing your worth, knowing that you belong at that table or in that profession. And it almost sounds like, knowing that your gift will make room and opportunity for you.
Yeah.
At what age or what point in your life did you realize that in order to showcase your gift, what point in your life did you realize that you had to climb higher hurdles or work harder than your counterparts in order to not to surpass them, but to just get at least halfway to where your counterparts are? When did you realize that, I've got to do double the work in order to just get to like halfway of where my counterparts are?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially as a minister, because there is such a double standard for women ministers and male ministers, and y'all ain't got enough time for me to talk about that either. And there is this feeling that as women ministers, we're emotional, we don't have substance, we don't know the scriptures as well, we're not theologically sound, and all of those things. And so I was blessed to be a part of a church where my pastor, my former pastor, wanted to dispel that, and he forced us to work as women. Most of the ministers in training in this church, we were all women, just about. And he was one of the very few Baptist pastors who believed in licensing women. I mean, to the point where he got nasty emails and letters through the years, but determined to break that myth. And so he would not allow us to get up on that pulpit without substance. Because he knew that when we walked outside the church, and the church loves you. The mother, they bless our heart, baby. I just love you, Reverend Nikki. You got up there, you cried, and you just spoke all kinds of words that didn't have no connection nowhere. You go to other churches, people are hurting. They want substance. They need theology. You can't go in there and cry all over the people, and so he would be very hard on us, especially me. He is laughing because my former pastor used to take me through the ringer, and he's like, "You are not going to get out here and represent us without sound doctrine, sound, as you say, gems." And so I did have to work twice as hard. I did have to struggle and figure out, who am I as a woman? How do I keep my femininity? But be able to bring a message as hard, as strong as another man could, right? And I did have a lot of female counterparts who were coming in and they were not as theologically sound, mainly because they didn't have a tutor or a mentor. So my former pastor forced us. We had classes every second and fourth Monday. And to this day, he's still having those classes. If you were licensed, ordained, you had to go to those classes. And we were reading these 18th century theological books and studying from them. And he was like, okay, I need you to preach, tomorrow. And I need you to bring a sound word. Don't get up like the Lord gonna meet me at the mic. He ain't meeting you at the mic. He better meet you at the mic. So those were the things that I had to recognize. How do people perceive of female preachers? And I understood what it was. They don't perceive of us that well. So I had a choice. I either was going to be stuck in a genre where I was only invited to women's events to speak to women, or to be able to develop a sound word that can speak anywhere on anybody's platform, whether it's a convocation or whatever it may be. And people walk away with a different understanding of the Bible, a different knowledge, theology, and I'm just as strong. And so, yeah, I had to go through that. And I want to say it took a long time. I was called at my early 20s. And I want to say it took me about 14, 15 years. And I don't want anybody to get discouraged. Because again, some of that was me. Some of that was my own issues. But it took 14, 15 years to really get to the place where I felt, you know, hey, I can stand next to my older brother who was a pastor, or I can stand next to this preacher who's a bishop, and I can bring, you know, a sound word and not feel like I gotta do all kinds of cartwheels and things like that just to be valid. And so I think for many women who are walking into male-dominated fields, you are going to have to, at times, work a little harder. Even if you're African American and you're walking into a field where they're more Caucasian, you are going to have to step up to the plate. We saw with Barack Obama. God knows if he did half the stuff that this presidency did. He knew he was walking a tightrope. He knew that. And we saw it with Kamala Harris with her discussion with Pence. You saw her shrink back.
Right.
And I'm going to say that was negative. You saw her because the perception is angry Black woman, angry Black woman. Her take it to Joe Biden when they were in the preliminary, you know, in the primaries. We saw that. But when he was with Pence, every Black woman was like, she about to whoo. But somebody on backstage told her, don't you go out there.
Don't you do that. Right.
Don't you do that. Don't you go there. Don't you go there.
Don't you go out there. And no matter how emotional you want to be, don't you go out there and allow yourself. And we felt it. I saw it. I was like, she's holding back.
Yes, she was.
You can see that right here.
She said, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
And that's a shame. But that's a shame that they took the attack on him for it was really her assertiveness. You know, the perception that she was attacking him, to me, it just looked like she was really assertive about her experience as a young child and what he did during the time that he was a senator, you know? So the assertiveness was, to me, taken for an attack.
You know, one of the things that we talking about tonight was that whole aggressiveness versus
assertiveness. Sure.
And it is a fine line because as women of color, we're very passionate. If you were raised, depending on who your mama was, I know I grew up in a very loud house and very, very passionate. And so as we talk loud sometimes. We don't use our inside voice. And so we're often mislabeled as being aggressive or she's so loud. The other thing is, because we were raised, I'm just going to talk now about African Americans. If you were raised by an African American mother, we were muted. We were taught as young girls, shut your mouth. I'll take it off. You know, so we were not taught in the African American family how to express our feelings, how to express our anger, when we're mad at our mom and dad. Who? Not you.
Right.
We were never allowed to express that. And so as a result of that, I know directly it made me bottle up all of my feelings for many, many years. And something would happen. Somebody didn't give me a straw for my soda and I blew the heck up, right? Because it's all this that has been pushed down for years. I wasn't allowed to tell my mom she make me sick. I wasn't allowed to yell back at my mom when I'm 13 and 14. I had to keep my mouth shut. I wasn't allowed to have an opinion about what I wanted and where I wanted to go. And I don't think this is fair. So then you carry that to your workplace, right? If your family or your parents taught you, go to work, shut your mouth, go to school. I don't want to hear nothing from you. You better do your work. Don't talk back to none of these teachers. You take that to work.
Sure. Right.
Consequences and repercussions.
Reverend Nikki.
Huh?
Reverend Nikki, yeah, I know we're getting a little pressed for time. If I could ask you this. Before we go, could you tell the audience some of the special projects again that you're working on? I know you talked about your book called Audacity. Are there any other projects that you are working on? The fellas, we're into supporting. So can you share that with the audience?
So I plan on having a leadership summit in March. It's actually March the 27th. It's going to be at the Westin in right in Voorhees in New Jersey. And you know, this is what we're going to be talking about. This is what we're going to be talking about. I want women who are in leadership, women who are in ministry, women who are leaders in their household to come to this event. And I run an organization called Ignite Women's Empowerment Summit, and we are expanding in 2021. Those are our new things. And we want, after our conference, we always have a huge conference in November, and afterwards we just don't do anything for the rest of the year. Well, starting in 2021, we want women to not just be impacted for November, that conference. We want to walk with them through the entire year. So there will be coaching, and there's going to be leadership events and other opportunities for women to be able to plug in to Ignite so that they stay on fire all year, so that they don't come to the event in November. We always have it in November, get fired up, and then lose the fire at the end of January. Right. So that's the new project. I do have, again, a book coming out called Audacity, The Power to Leap. And it really is for us as women, really taking those steps of courage to literally be who God has created us to be. And of course, we have Ignite Summit 2021, which will be coming out. And that theme is called The Surge. And it's going to be November 4th through the 6th at the Chase Center in Wilmington, Delaware. And that's definitely on our website right now as well, that we have a special price that's going on. And we try to blend spirituality and practicality for that conference. We bring in name speakers, but we also bring in women who are never heard of before, no name speakers, to bring practical advice to help women in leadership, women in finance, women in relationships. And these are all the women that I work with during my counseling sessions. These are all the women. It's the conglomerate of everyone that I've ever met, connected with. And I don't mean they're the actual women who came to the themes that I bring, the topics that I bring are all the messages that I've heard over 10, 15 years that I think, again, still resounds today. So
right. Now, I think it's amazing. I've seen some pictures. I've seen Sandy, and I think Anita and Micah, and I'm like, yo, that team is dope. Like, you got some sisters. You got some sisters that just come together and work. What was that experience like? Bringing that team together. And overcoming the obstacles just to reach that goal.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep it short because y'all know preachers have 4 closings.
Right. That was the third one.
I promise. Being able to work with the team at Ignite was a conglomerate of everything I learned at Bethany Baptist Church, being the women's pastor there and leading the women for 10 years there, and all the mistakes that I made. And being able to lead that team, going through ups and downs, coming out of Bethany, I moved from New Jersey to I'm in North Carolina right now. Everything that I learned there, everything that I learned about how to nurture women, how that my team has to be the first recipient. They have to be the ones to eat first of the message that we're given. So nobody else can get ignited if they don't get ignited. Right. Everybody on the team is challenged to do something to come out of their comfort zone. They know that. I normally don't tell them that till later. I'll say, "Oh, I think I want you to teach a workshop." They're like, "No, right. I'm like, no, we're going to teach a workshop too." And so everybody is challenged on my team to do something and step out of the box that they've never done before. Because how can we ignite other women? We don't ignite ourselves. Right. Same principles apply. It's no mean girls on my team. And, I learned that it's important that I create an environment where women can exceed. I do work hard. I make the women work hard. But at the same time, just trying to teach women we can work together and not be competitive. We don't have to argue. So when there are small issues on our team or any type of large issues, we're not going to be tiptoeing around each other. We're not going to be talking about each other. We're getting on the phone. What's the deal? What happened? Who said it? How do we squash this to move forward? Because if we don't, it's going to show up at the conference. Sure. It's going to show up at the registration table, And so we recognize that women struggle to be in a room with other women and feel accepted and belonged. And I know that starts with me. If I don't
Right.
And then challenge it with my team. We're not going to challenge it in our message in anything.
Right. Right. Thank you. This has been another amazing, dope show with Reverend Nikki Brown. I appreciate you so much.
Yes.
For those watching, if you can, go to Just Our Thoughts fan page on Facebook and Just Our Thoughts on YouTube. You can catch this. This will be up on tomorrow on YouTube. Also, go to ignitesummit.org. Check out Reverend Nikki's product. Check out everything that she has. She has a conference coming up this March and next year, November 4th through the 6th of 2021. Please support Reverend Nikki. Reverend Nikki, we support you.
Thank you.
These are Just Our Thoughts, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Reverend Nikki.